I've never liked camping. Something about the forest always felt wrong to me. It's not ours, not really. Out there, the rules change. We stop being the ones in control, and suddenly we're trespassers in a place that doesn't belong to us. But that night, against my better judgment, I went. My friends had been insisting for weeks. "Just one night, man. It'll be fun. Get away from the city, clear your head," they said. I should have trusted my instincts, but instead, I forced a smile, nodded, and followed them into the woods. The forest greeted us with a silence I've never heard before. It wasn't the natural hush of trees swaying or animals hiding in the dark. This was different, heavy, as if the air itself had been drained of life. No insects buzzing, no rustling in the underbrush, not even the whisper of wind, just silence, thick and suffocating. We pitched the tent in a small clearing. Every time I hammered a stake into the ground, I felt as though the sound carried too far, echoing into a vast emptiness. And still, I couldn't shake the sensation of eyes on me, watching, measuring. We lit a small fire, barely enough to fight back the darkness pressing in from all sides. My friends laughed, passed around drinks, and told stupid ghost stories. I tried to join in, but the shadows clinging to the trees had my full attention. They weren't still. They seemed to shift, to breathe in slow rhythm with the night. Later, when everyone else had drifted off to sleep, I lay inside the tent with my eyes wide open. The air was damp, cold, and smelled of soil freshly turned. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. That's when it started. The first sound was a sharp crack, like heavy weight pressing down on brittle wood. My breath caught in my throat. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a deer, maybe a fox. But then came the second sound, a drag, long, wet, as though something enormous was pulling itself across the forest floor. My chest tightened, my fingers trembled around the flashlight in my hand, but I didn't dare turn it on. I lay frozen, straining to hear, praying it was only my imagination. And then, through the thin fabric of the tent, I saw it, a silhouette, tall, wrong, standing just at the edge of the clearing, still as death, watching. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. The shape outside the tent towered over the trees, impossibly tall, its outline jagged and shifting as though it wasn't entirely solid. I told myself it was a trick of the fire dying down, a shadow cast by something ordinary. But then, it leaned forward. The fabric of the tent seemed to tighten, like the air itself was being pulled toward it. My chest ached from holding my breath, yet I didn't dare inhale. Every instinct screamed, "Don't let it know you're awake." The dragging sound came again, slower this time, circling the tent. Whatever it wasn't walking like any animal I knew. The ground seemed to groan under its weight, branches cracking, soil tearing. I gripped the flashlight until my knuckles burned. My friends didn't stir. They slept through it, their breathing steady, oblivious to the nightmare stalking outside. Then I heard it, fingers, long, crooked fingers sliding against the canvas wall of the tent. They traced the fabric with a sound like nails on wet stone. My skin crawled. The silhouette's hand pressed down, creating an indentation inches above my face. That was when I realized it knew I was awake. The fire had gone out completely now. No light, no warmth. Just the whisper of the forest and the sound of my own heart threatening to tear itself free. I tried to convince myself to scream, to wake the others, but fear strangled the words in my throat. If I made a sound, I knew it would open the tent. I don't know how, I just knew. And then it spoke. Not in words, not in any human tongue. It was a vibration, deep and guttural, like stone grinding against stone, a resonance that seeped into my bones. My ears rang, my teeth ached, and for a moment I thought I could hear whispers beneath it. Voices, countless voices, begging. I shut my eyes tight. Maybe if I didn't look, it would leave. But curiosity gnawed at me, and before I could stop myself, I peeked through the tiniest gap in the zipper of the tent. Two lights. No, not lights. Eyes, burning white, piercing the dark like twin lanterns. They weren't blinking. They weren't even alive in the way eyes should be. They were hollow, endless, swallowing everything they looked at, and they were locked on me. My stomach turned to ice. I snapped the zipper shut, but it was too late. The tent trembled, its walls pressing inward, as though something immense crouched over us. My friend stirred then, one mumbling in his sleep. The dragging sound moved away, slow, deliberate, into the trees. For a while, I let myself believe it was gone. I even started to breathe again. But then, I heard it. From the distance, carried through the black forest, the faint metallic scrape of something opening. A zipper, not ours. That sound froze the blood in my veins. A zipper, slow, careful, as if whatever was out there had watched us long enough to understand how the tent worked. I wanted to believe it was just the wind, some trick of the night carrying noises from our own camp. But the scraping continued, drawn out, deliberate, and it wasn't coming from our tent. It was coming from the far side of the clearing. One of my friends shifted beside me, groaning sleepily. I pressed my hand over his mouth before he could say anything. He looked at me with wide, confused eyes. I didn't have to explain. He heard it too. The sound stopped. For a moment, the clearing was silent again, so quiet I could hear the damp soil settling beneath the weight of the trees. Then, the scream. It came from the other tent. A raw animal scream that tore through the night and cut off as suddenly as it began. The silence that followed was worse, much worse. We didn't move. We didn't dare. The air inside our tent grew heavy, foul, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. Then I saw it, a shadow gliding across the thin fabric, impossibly tall, bending unnaturally as it dragged something heavy across the ground. There was no mistaking it anymore. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was something ancient, something that had been here long before us, something that waited for us. I wanted to run, to burst out of the tent and sprint blindly into the trees. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't obey. I was trapped, paralyzed by the weight of those glowing eyes that I knew were fixed on me even when I couldn't see them. The dragging came closer. I could hear my friend's heart pounding under my hand. He was trembling, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. And then right outside our tent, we heard it again, that guttural vibration. That voice that wasn't a voice. The walls of the tent seemed to pulse with it. My vision blurred, my ears rang. Images flashed in my head. Rotting trees, endless black water, faces screaming in silence. I don't know how long it lasted, maybe seconds, maybe hours, and then nothing. The weight lifted, the air cleared, the forest returned to its dead, suffocating quiet. At some point, I must have lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, it was morning. Pale light filtered through the trees. Birds were chirping as if the night had been nothing but a dream, but it wasn't, because the other tent was gone. Not collapsed, not torn. Gone. No sign it had ever been there. No belongings. No footprints. No friends. Just an empty patch of dirt where it had stood. I never found them. The police said it was probably an accident, that they'd gotten lost in the night. But I know better. The forest took them. And every time I close my eyes, I still see those pale, burning lights watching me from the dark.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.